Pack your bags, we're headed on a big old ride with dreams of sunlit shores and the open skies.
Welcome to episode 2 of our Japanese adventure. It was an early start the following morning. Outside our hotel window, the skies were grey and a light drizzle was falling. It would have been very easy to roll over and stay in bed, but today wasn't just any day. Today was Mount Fuji Day. We had booked the excursion several weeks earlier, and ever since arriving in Japan, it was one of the experiences we had been looking forward to most. There is always a special feeling when a long-awaited plan finally becomes reality. Making our way down to the hotel lobby, we met the rest of our group for the day. To our delight, it was a small gathering of just 8 travellers in total. Along with us were 2 Canadians and 4 Americans. Straight away, it felt like the sort of group where everyone would get along. Our guide and driver for the day was Jack, and within minutes it was obvious that we were in good hands. Friendly, knowledgeable, and blessed with a great sense of humour, he seemed to know exactly how to put everyone at ease. As we set off, Jack shared stories about Japanese culture, local traditions, and the areas we were passing through. These were the sorts of insights that never make it into guidebooks and often become some of the most memorable parts of a trip. Soon, we left Yokohama behind and began the 2-hour drive towards the Mount Fuji region. The journey itself was fascinating. We travelled through seemingly endless suburbs and urban landscapes that stretched far beyond anything we had imagined. Tokyo and its surrounding areas are vast, beyond comprehension, and it felt as though the city continued forever. Our first stop was the famous Chureito Pagoda. Even if you've never visited Japan, you've almost certainly seen photographs of this location. The elegant red pagoda standing proudly on the hillside with Mount Fuji rising majestically behind it has become one of the country's most iconic images. Standing there in person felt slightly surreal. Despite the lingering cloud and mist, the view was still stunning. The vibrant red of the pagoda contrasted beautifully against the muted colours of the landscape, and every now and then the clouds would part just enough to tease us with glimpses of the mountain beyond. It was enough to keep our hopes alive. Back aboard the vehicle, we continued towards Lake Kawaguchi and Oishi Park, and this is where the day transformed completely. Almost as if someone had flicked a switch, the weather began to improve, the clouds started to break apart. Patches of blue appeared overhead. And then, slowly but surely, Mount Fuji revealed itself. At first it was just a glimpse of the upper slopes. Then more and more of the mountain emerged until suddenly there it was in its entirety. Snow-covered, magnificent, dominating the landscape. It was one of those moments that genuinely takes your breath away. No photograph truly prepares you for seeing Mount Fuji with your own eyes. Our small group spent the next few minutes taking photographs, swapping phones for group pictures, and generally behaving exactly as tourists should when confronted with such an incredible view. What struck us most was how quickly everyone had become comfortable with one another. Just a few hours earlier we had been complete strangers. Now we were sharing jokes, taking photographs for each other, and celebrating our good fortune together. Travel has a wonderful way of creating connections like that. From Oishi Park, we boarded a small sightseeing boat for a cruise across Lake Kawaguchi. As we drifted across the calm waters, the atmosphere changed once again. Everything felt peaceful. The wooded hills surrounding the lake reflected in the water below, while Mount Fuji stood watch over the entire scene. There was a sense of calmness about the place that is difficult to describe. It wasn't just beautiful, it felt tranquil. The sort of place where you instinctively slow down and simply appreciate the moment. Eventually our growing appetites reminded us that sightseeing is hungry work. Fortunately, Jack had already selected a restaurant for lunch, And as we've learned many times while travelling, it's usually wise to trust the guide. Lunch consisted of a steaming noodle and vegetable stew served in traditional style. Simple food often turns out to be the most satisfying, and this was no exception. As we ate, conversation flowed easily around the table. By now we had become well acquainted with our travelling companions, Drew, Desiree, Diane, Laura, Birgitta and Rolando. Stories were exchanged, travel experiences compared, and plenty of laughter shared. It's remarkable how quickly friendships can form when people share memorable experiences together. After lunch came another highlight of the day, the Mount Fuji Panoramic Ropeway. The cable car carried us steadily up the mountainside opposite Mount Fuji, providing increasingly impressive views with every passing minute. By now the transformation in the weather was complete. The skies were clear, the sunshine was bright, and visibility was absolutely perfect. At the summit we were rewarded with spectacular panoramic views stretching across Lake Kawaguchi and towards Mount Fuji itself. The mountain stood against a brilliant blue sky, every detail visible. We simply stood there for several minutes, taking it all in. Sometimes there isn't much to say. Some views speak for themselves. Looking back, we realise just how lucky we had been. Had we arrived an hour earlier, the mountain would still have been hidden behind cloud. Timing, as they say, is everything. Eventually, it was time to begin the journey back to Yokohama. We settled into our seats, pleasantly tired after a day packed with experiences, but Jack wasn't quite finished entertaining us. Along the route he introduced us to one final surprise, a section of road known as Melody Road. For those unfamiliar with the concept, specially engineered grooves have been cut into the surface of the highway. When vehicles travel across them at the correct speed, the vibrations create a recognisable tune through the tyres. It sounds improbable, but it works. As the melody played beneath the vehicle, everyone burst into laughter. It was quirky, unexpected, and a wonderfully light-hearted way to end the day. As we finally arrived back in Yokohama that evening, exhaustion had definitely set in. Once again, the next day began early, very early, at least for me. Determined not to miss the arrival of our ship, I slipped out of the hotel at first light and walked down to the waterfront, hoping to catch a dramatic entrance as she sailed into port. Unfortunately, by the time I arrived, the mighty Diamond Princess was already quietly berthed, as if she'd been there all along. No grand arrival, but the excitement was real all the same. Still, it was good to see this suburb ship standing at the quay and take a few photographs. After breakfast, we left the Citadines harbourfront Yokohama and made the short walk to the cruise terminal at Osunbashi Pier. There she was in full view, sleek, gleaming and promising. 10 days of adventure around southern Japan. Boarding was impressively smooth. Within what felt like minutes, we'd stepped from terminal to ship and found ourselves seated in the international dining room, tucking into a surprisingly refined lunch. There's something wonderfully surreal about enjoying a multi-course meal while knowing your hotel is about to sail away. Soon after, the announcement came that our cabin was ready. We unpacked quickly, always a satisfying moment, turning a cabin into your space, and headed straight up on deck for the sail-away party. Standing on the forward deck as the ship gently pulled away from Yokohama was one of those travel moments you don't forget. The skyline slowly shifted, the harbour widened, and the buzz of anticipation rippled through the passengers. As we approached the impressive Yokohama Bay Bridge, everyone looked up. From our vantage point, it seemed almost impossibly close, the ship's radar domes appearing to barely squeeze beneath the bridge's structure, a collective intake of breath, and then we were through, heading out into open water. That evening, the sense of occasion continued. We enjoyed pre-dinner drinks in Crooner's Lounge, relaxed, atmospheric, and the perfect place to toast the beginning of our voyage. Later, we made our way to the Princess Theatre for an outstanding performance by world-renowned harmonica player Aidan Soon. It was polished, energetic, and unexpectedly powerful. A reminder that cruise entertainment can genuinely surprise you. From early morning anticipation to sailing beneath the bridge and ending with world-class live music, it felt like the perfect opening chapter to our journey at sea. A sea day, no alarm clocks, no excursion schedules, no rushing to catch buses or tour groups, just a full day with nowhere to be except exactly where you wanted to be. And we embraced that concept wholeheartedly. In fact, we embraced it so enthusiastically that by the time we finally opened our eyes, most people had probably already finished breakfast. One of the great luxuries of cruising is that the ship quietly carries you to your next destination while you're sleeping. There's no packing, no airports, and no check-in desks. You simply wake up and continue your holiday. Our morning began slowly with coffee delivered to the stateroom. Sitting on our balcony, watching the endless blue ocean slip past felt wonderfully indulgent. There was no timetable to follow and no pressure to do anything at all. Eventually, hunger persuaded us to leave the cabin and head up to Horizon Court for brunch. Now, brunch on a cruise ship is a dangerous thing. You arrive thinking you'll have something light, then you spot pastries, then bacon, then something you've never seen before, but suddenly feel compelled to try. Before long, your plate resembles a small international food festival. Needless to say, brunch was excellent. The atmosphere around the ship was noticeably different from embarkation day. Everyone seemed more relaxed. Strangers were becoming familiar faces, and passengers were settling comfortably into shipboard life. Late morning brought one of the most entertaining events of the entire cruise, a shot glass exchange organised through a Facebook cruise group. Before the voyage, a number of passengers had connected online, and this gathering was our chance to finally meet in person. The idea was simple. Everyone brought a shot glass representing their hometown or local area. The glasses were displayed on tables and participants could choose one to take home as a souvenir. There was, however, one small catch. Once you'd selected your shot glass, you had to stand up and introduce yourself to the group. Simple enough, or at least it should have been. As my turn approached, I could feel a mischievous idea forming. When the moment came, I stood up confidently, smiled at the rooms and announced, "Hello everyone, my name is Rob and I'm an alcoholic." There was a brief moment of stunned silence. Then the entire room burst into laughter. Fortunately, everyone recognised it for the joke it was intended to be, and it immediately broke the ice. For the rest of the gathering, people were introducing themselves, sharing stories and swapping travel experiences. What had begun as a collection of online acquaintances quickly turned into a room full of new friends. By the end of the event, we had collected shot glasses from Tennessee and Sacramento, each carrying not only a memory of a place, but also a reminder of the people we'd met. It's one of the things we love most about cruising. You can board a ship knowing nobody and leave with friendships that stretch across continents. The afternoon drifted by in that pleasant sea day haze where time seems to slow down. People lounged around the ship with books, gathered in bars and cafes, or simply watched the ocean roll by. Before we knew it, evening had arrived, and not just any evening, it was formal night. Now, formal night always creates an interesting transformation on board. Throughout the day, you've seen people wandering around in short sandals and holiday attire. Then, suddenly, everyone disappears for an hour and re-emerges looking as though they're attending a Hollywood awards ceremony. The ship seemed to sparkle just a little brighter. Passengers dressed in suits, tuxedos, cocktail dresses, and evening gowns filled the public areas, creating a real sense of occasion. Before dinner, we made our way to Crooner's Bar for a drink. One of the highlights of formal night is the atmosphere throughout the ship, and nowhere was that more evident than in the atrium. There, a towering pyramid of champagne glasses had been assembled, and crew members carefully poured champagne into the top, allowing it to cascade gracefully through the layers below. It was elegant, theatrical, and undeniably impressive. After enjoying the spectacle, we headed to the Princess Theatre for the evening's production show. I got the music in me. The performance was packed with energy, featuring talented singers, dancers and musicians who delivered a thoroughly entertaining show. But for us, one performer stood out above everyone else, Brigitte's daughter. Her vocals were simply outstanding. Every time she stepped forward for a solo, she seemed to lift the entire performance to another level. Powerful, confident, and beautifully controlled, she captured the audience's attention from the very first note. When the final curtain came down, the applause was thunderous and thoroughly deserved. And with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd be grateful if you could follow the podcast, leave a review, or share it with fellow travellers who might enjoy hearing about our adventures. In episode 3, our voyage continues as we visit our first ports of call in southern Japan, discover new destinations, experience more unforgettable moments, and see what surprises await us ashore.
Pack your bags, we're headed on a big old ride with dreams of sunlit shores and the open skies.